Yes, you're at the right place if you want to hear more awesomeness in the mortgage business. My name is Carl White. You are listening to Loan Officer Freedom, and it is your voice of the industry. Hey, I'm joined again by my dear friend Mark Pfeiffer out of the Dallas area, right? Dallas area, and today we're talking about green time, red time. So I've heard different versions of this, Mark. First of all, good to see you here again, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me as always, Mr. Carl.
Yeah. So green time, red time. Kind of give us a synopsis of what this is and how you do it, and what it's done for you, and why our listeners should do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was given me as a homework assignment many years ago, and it absolutely transformed my mindset and how I live my day, and just what ultimately then led to the lag effect, which is more business, right?
Mm.
So I think the difference is if somebody asks you how many hours a week or a day do you spend prospecting, most of us probably have some sort of guess to say, oh, I spend 2 hours or 4 hours a day or whatever that number is, right? But the
Which,
reality is,
by
do
the
you actually
way,
know that?
which by the way, if we ask somebody how much of their day is prospecting, they're really just kind of pulling a number out of the air or out of their butt. Maybe it's, and not that they're being dishonest. They probably literally don't know. And maybe the truth is a little uglier than what they want to see.
I'm telling you, it is absolutely humbling. So the biggest thing I can offer is for a whopping $17 on Amazon, you can actually know the stats. So I'm holding here, and I know most of us are probably listening to this on a podcast, so you won't see the visual, but I'm holding a digital chess timer that you can get off of Amazon for like, call it 17 bucks. And so the homework that was given to me, which I've assigned to my folks, is this chess timer. And what you don't know or can't see is that on the top over the left side, I put the word green and I highlight it in green. Technically, my kids did this, so I had each kid do one.
So for somebody,
Uh,
that's- so for somebody that's just listening, it's a clock that has two clocks on it. One clock in a stopwatch, so it's two stopwatches built in. Again, a chess timer on Amazon.
yeah, just to go one, it's so wholesale, and I'm not endorsing this brand, but wholesale I think comes up. When I bought in so many of these are a great gift. If you're listening to this as a lender, these are fantastic gifts for recruits. These are fantastic gifts for realtors. I don't know that they'll necessarily use it, but the reality is they should. But it's really cool.
Legal
But like
guarantee.
it's wholesale chess, basic digital chess clock. So wholesale chess, digital chess clock. And it has a gray strip on top that you kind of pound one to the left and one to the right. And as you push each side of it, the clock will then start, let's say on the left side, which is my green time. And then when I'm done doing my green time, I push the button again on top and it goes back to where the clock on the right starts again. And that's counting my red time. So it's the clock turns on and off. Only one sign can be on at one given time. But this is the part, Carl. Well, I've gotten so used to this when I'm on the phone, my hand instinctually will just slap that green time to turn it on when I'm actually prospecting that phone call. And if somebody walks in the office, immediately slap it over to the red time because now they're interrupting. And the cool part about this, I had a boss walk in once, and this is, 3, 4 years ago when I was first adopting this. I'm sitting there on the phone doing my thing. He walks in, I hang up, and he goes, "Hey," and I go, "Yeah." Kind of slap the red time over, and I look at him with this look of disdain, like, "What do you want?" And it wasn't meant that way, but you're interrupting my green time. I was in a rhythm. He kind of looks around and goes, "Oh, nothing. Good luck with your green time." And he kind of just moonwalks out the room. And it
Mm.
was this aha moment that if people understand that you are tracking your green time, suddenly they're not going to come in with those little interruptions that are kind of the check-in or whatever you need, and they will either email you or chances are the problem may just work itself out. So it is so powerful because when I started this, Carl, I was like, oh man, I'm going to crush this. I had an abysmal, like maybe 30 minutes on average a day of green time when I first started this. And I was doing some good volume back then.
That's actually probably a little on the high side for somebody just getting started in with it. Somebody that's actually prospect, because and you know what? Let's spend a few minutes. So we got the clock. One of the clocks is always running when you're in work. It's either the red clock or the green clock. And differentiate real quick what's red time and what's green time.
Exactly. So this is the part where everybody's going to have a slightly different opinion. I've had enough of these conversations with my team. They ask, but truthfully, I think the number one thing is be consistent and be honest, right? You're competing with nobody but yourself. So in my mind, green time is only phone calls and eyeballs. right? So like you and I right now chatting, this is not green time for me. It may be for you, but I don't make any money doing this. This is because I like it and you and I are buds. But the reality is, green time is when you're on the phone having a conversation about business. So, for example, talking to a client, right? And you can say, well, Mark, I'm calling to follow up on conditions. Is that red time or green time? Because I already got the business. Personally, I call it green time. Why? Because every single time you talk to somebody, you should be asking for a referral.
Mm.
You should always be looking for those opportunities to ask for business. A title company. What if a title company, I'm on the phone with them? Nope. Unless that call was purposely made as part of your call list with the intention of asking and getting business or asking for referral partners, it's all the purpose of that phone call. If the title company calls you, that ain't green time, right? You can certainly pretend and sneak it in there and say, oh, dude, you know, but the reality is the intention has to be the mindset. What was the call made for? So if the call is calling your referral partners, your past clients, your database, everything you know it to be, Carl, that's your green time, right? If you're making those phone calls, then eyeballs, face to face, Zoom meetings with people that can give you business. So when my wife calls, slap it over to the red time. When my team calls, slap it over the red. I do not count, this is Mark Pfeiffer's personal opinion. I don't count text messages as green. People can say, well, I'm having a communication, I'm having a conversation. That's just not a real conversation, in my opinion. Yes, it's communication, but it's not a relationship builder. It's not how you actually have a real conversation. Some people can say, oh man, I'm on social media, interacting, DMing, doing all this stuff. Again, that's part of marketing, in my opinion, but it's not the green time. So I think ultimately, what's important to you in your business, what gets you business, and it may differ from person to person, but the answer is be consistent. Because if you're not, and you change your mind every few weeks, it's hard to see the progress in what you've made.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're on the same page there on the green and red time because, like, yeah, for me, like when I'm measuring red time, green time, I have to just make sure, and you've already said this. Number one, I'm being honest to myself, and number two, that I understand, is this a call designed to bring in more business or is it to close a business I'm already in? If it's to close a business I already got, that's red time. If it's to bring in a new application, a new borrower, a new connection, that's green time. Um, and getting ready to do something doesn't count.
That's so true.
I'm getting my list together. I'm going over my conversation or my scripts or however you want to call it. I'm driving over to. I'm sending video out to, like, all that would be red time. Green time.
100%. It's eyeballs and conversations. That is it. Again, getting ready to business planning, coaching, none of that's green time. The reality is, Carl, and like I said, keep it simple in the beginning, the red and green. And the other part too. So I typically work from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Like it's a hard stop at 6 for me. I got kiddos and all this stuff. And I know we all do. I'm not unique in this
Yep.
instance, but I really do have a hard stop at 6. And so for me, that's 10 hours, right? So if you start tracking this, you're not going to have 10 hours on your clock by the end of the day because you're going to stop and eat lunch. You're going to go to the bathroom. So pro tip here, if you do leave your office to go, take a walk down the hallway or whatever it is, or go see somebody that's a, personal thing, I push, there's a pause button on this thing and put it on your keyboard. Because in the beginning, the first couple of weeks, it's just going to be habit forming because you're going to be like, oh, I forgot to flip the switch, or I forgot to push the button, or I forgot to restart it. Put it on the keyboard because when you come back, you can then unpause it and put it back in front of you. So at the end of the day, you're going to say, man, I worked 10 hours. Did you though?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go out to the kitchen, you get that afternoon snack and that laundry needed folding or whatever it may be, or if you're in the office, you go down the hallway and you start having that conversation with somebody. Again, that's not purposeful business, right?
Yeah.
So the clock's not started. So I think in the beginning, keep it. But the pro tip you mentioned about prospecting, you and I've had this conversation about gold time. This would say I would say if we're talking right now, this is the beginners 101 on the red and green, just tracking. The advanced class is going to be tracking the difference between gold, and gold runs up under the green. But this was my aha moment last year, Carl. As I'm looking at my business, we were down, call it 15 or 20%. The market was down more than that. So at least, hey, good for us. We held our own. But the reality is I go back and look at my end of year business planning, and we hadn't added any significant new referral partners.
Mm-hmm.
And the aha, but my green time was good. And the aha moment was, holy smokes, I've been squeezing blood out of a turnip. Like I just hadn't gone, like the green time, maintaining business relationships is incredibly important. But the part I now track separate, which is under the green, So the green time could be running is I'm making sure we are doing that gold time at least an hour a day. And that gold time is reaching what you said, reaching out to new blood, going farming, going prospecting, finding new realtors and new referral partners. That's the advanced class, but get the habits first before you start to work out first before you go run the marathon. But it's absolutely eye opening. It's game changing and humbling. And don't get disappointed because again, you're not competing with anybody but yourself. And so what I do is I track this every single day in my little daily planner. And at the end of the week, I add it all up. And you and me are both numbers guy, Carl. So even if you're not a numbers person, but I'll just put it into a worksheet. And what's really neat to see is over time, you should see that green time grow because you'll become more purposeful. You know, you have to change your daily habits. As you stare at that clock, I promise you, your mentality will change and you get hungry to like, I need that more green time. I need to squeak out an extra, whatever it is. So that, in January for me, sadly, I only average like let's call it 2 hours and 15 minutes a day of green time. I expect more. I've done more. I've gotten as good as, over 4 hours. January was just January. I don't know what happened, but the reality is I just didn't get it. And I'm not happy about it. But I promise you my February will have more than 2 hours a day because I'm now, again, that competitive nature and the drive, knowing that your business will correlate to the screen time. And that's the other cool part. If you record that every week, you'll see your closings will grow about 60, 90 days later with the more green time that you have.
So what would you say? Like I'm just starting to measure and I'm being honest with self and prepping for it doesn't count as green time. It's actual green time. What would you say initially? I don't know. I'm thinking, is this something that we wean ourselves into? Is this an event? And it's like, oh no, starting today, I'm prospecting, X amount of hours. Here, let me go further upstream here real quick. What is a how much green time do you think I need to be in the top 2% of loan officers? Like what do you where would you put their green time at in hours per Monday through?
I'll take a guess, but I want your answer as well because you have the actual data to prove it with your knowledge and insight to other folks. Because my scope's semi-limited. I suspect if you told me that somebody did 10 hours a week of prospecting, you'd probably be on the upper echelon, is my guess.
No question. I would say that too. And I think that's I think starting off with two and then working to four. And maybe for me, what that would look like is maybe 2 hours is doing phone work, and then 2 hours in the afternoon doing the belly to belly work. It would be impossible to do that and not have epic success measured in commas and zeros.
There's no question. And so
I've
this is the part
never seen it not
I
work.
the only thing I would just caution you in the beginning, I always tell folks for at least for 30 days. I mean, we're just trying to build habits. Like
Yeah.
I'd call it more tracking as opposed to goal setting. Like don't even try to change anything you're doing. Like get a benchmark of where you are and what you're doing. Because then with that benchmark, you can say, okay, if I did this for 30 days and the last, you can argue that this 30 days is probably going to be very similar to what you've done the last 90, right? So unless you've done some earth shattering, like, oh my gosh, this revelation, the reality is just track it for 30 days to see where you are today and then use that as your benchmark. So yes, I would love for everybody listening to this to get 4 hours a day of green time. That'd be amazing. It's just hard. And it took me a long time to get there and to build that up. So again, you're in competition with nobody but yourself. So if you average, I don't care if you average 15 minutes a day of green time, you're like, dadgum, that's no bueno, right? The reality is fine. Next week, shoot for 20 minutes a day. Because again, you just can't just stop everything you're doing and say, I'm going to go get 4 hours a day. Because you will, by the way, this is the hard part for me. So again, kind of getting more into once you've done the 30 days, you built the habits. The next challenge is how do you smooth out the peaks and valleys? Because I can come in on Mondays historically, for whatever reason, Mondays, I'm jazzed. I come in and I'll get 5 to 6 hours of green time on Monday. Well, guess what happens? You create a lot of activity, a lot of motion, leads come in. Tuesday, Wednesday, you start doing prequels, and by you look at Thursday, Friday, or I guess Wednesday, Thursday, my green time is usually pretty low. So I've seen that this valley, and again, I like tracking, so I put all kinds of charts too. You don't have to, but the reality is, if you see habits starting to form, that man, I can get Monday and Tuesdays. I can put really good green days together of 6 hours and 7 hours.
Yeah.
But the other piece, the reason why I advise against that to some degree is you get burnt out. Like my God, I was just on the phone for 7 hours today. What a beatdown!
Mhm.
And then you don't want to do it tomorrow. So
Yeah.
some of that's just live for 30 days, seeing how you live your life, track that green time and where when it is on your calendar. And I think that will then help you become a better business owner and realize that, man, if I just did maybe 2 hours a day and did that 5 times a week, I got 10 hours as opposed to one day with 7 and the next, each day after that with 30 minutes. I think it's probably healthier to just be consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a couple things for me is number one, boy, and this is a biggie. Measure my activity, not my results.
Yep.
Measure my activity and not my results. Because otherwise I do it for like I saw somebody and I'm not poking fun at this person because I've been there, right? I know where this person was coming from. But I saw somebody post, "Hey, I'm getting discouraged. I had a meeting this week and they canceled." It was like, well, hell, I had 5 meetings that were canceled, right? Because I made 15, right? So one's not enough. And so we measure our activity, not our results. And number two, for me, like I find that 2 hours is the magical number. That
I believe that.
when we knock out that 2 hours, in my case, Monday through Thursday, some people would say Monday through Friday, right? Either one's good. Uh, but for me, so mine's Monday through Thursday. And so I typically don't work on Fridays. And I'm not going to say never, Mark. Like if you were to fly into town and it happened to be a Friday, of course I'm going to work on Friday, get to hang out with Mark, right? But generally my Fridays are off. But the reason why they're off, Mark, is that's my carrot that when I do my 2 hours of green time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I've now earned the right to take Friday off. So it's not a God-given right to take Fridays off. It's an earned carrot. And so for me, it's not a process, it's an event. The way when I started my 2 hours, it was like I started it and I didn't wean up to it or I'm gonna do 30 minutes a day and 45. It was like I'm an all or nothing guy, right? It's my blessing and my curse, right? Trust me, it's caused me some grief in my life and it's caused me some great victories, right? So, but I think we had to just say like, you know what, from 9 to 11. And by the way, mine, and I'd love to hear what yours is. Mine has to be in the mornings because if I don't, something will come up. Like if I'm gonna do it, all right, I'll do it this afternoon. Something come up and something will happen. We got this saying, don't get so busy building the farm that you forget you forget to milk the cows. And the idea is I can't be going out there and fixing things and then forget to prospect because that's the milking of the cows. And if I don't do it first thing in the morning, something will come up and it just gets put to the side. Are you the morning person? Are you able to do it in the afternoon?
I think I don't believe in people saying I'm a morning person, night person. I understand there might be some natural tendency, but over time you can become whatever you want to become. And so I do believe mornings absolutely first thing in the morning, start dialing and get that out of the way. Because at the end of the day, guys, the aha moment. So Carl, you mentioned the you take Fridays off. The aha moment, guys, is when you start tracking this and then you live 90 days for this thing. Like there was a day I 1 week, you take vacations, right? So I was leaving on a Wednesday afternoon, we'll say. Shoot, man, I had 7 hours on Monday, 7 hours on Tuesday, and I think 2 hours before I left for the airport on Wednesday afternoon. So that was 16 hours. I was like, holy smokes. I just did an entire week's worth of work and more so at the time than what I was doing prior. And
Yeah.
it was one of those like, it doesn't matter how much you work, guys. It really doesn't. I don't care if you're pounding out 80 hours a week and if all you're doing is pre-approvals and paperwork and all this other stuff. You didn't work that week doing your job. We are in sales. We happen to, sling mortgages, but the reality is you were in sales. So the aha moment for me was holy smokes. It doesn't matter how much you work, it's how much you do the right work. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what this is. So the part I will caution. So I love your carrot for Carl who wants to take Fridays off. You and I are different stages of life. We both acknowledge that. I work, Fridays when I'm in town and not traveling. But the reality is that is one of the pitfalls you got to be careful of. So for me, what happens is, okay, my goal is going to be, let's just say 10 hours this week. And you knock it out. And by Wednesday, you've gotten 16, as I just mentioned. You fall into this almost like complacency mindset where suddenly Thursday and Friday, I found myself not as motivated or animated trying to get those extra green time. I'm like, screw it. I've already gotten my 16 hours. I'm good. So I'll still work the Thursday, Friday because I got nowhere else to be but the office. But have the carrot. And then I would,
I've got other places to be.
yeah,
I
I understand that. I understand that. So for me, it's like, hey, but you're showing up for work. I know
can
I
help
got
you with that,
kids.
Mark. I can help you with that.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. But my point is, I just had this like, don't set like set your goal and then create some sort of carrot for bonus time. If your goal and met or your metric, because I think those are two different things, right? The goals, which you're really the big one you're going for, the metrics, which you have to do. You have to do 10 hours of green time, whatever it is your level is at. But then use the, hey man, if I get 20 and I do work all, instead of taking Fridays off and I want to sit here and pound it out and I get 20 instead of 10, have a little list of, this is a whole nother topic we can talk about, but I got little prizes for myself. I don't want to brag, but I can afford, $100, whatever it is. But the
Mhm.
reality is I set these little prizes aside that says I have to do these things in order to unlock that box so I can go kind of like the Boy Scouts, or whatever it was when you were little for sports, you sell chocolate bars.
Yeah, you got to earn your badge.
Yeah, you got to earn your badge, right? You got to go sell 20 chocolate bars and I get this, whatever it is. I sell 50, I get this. So same thing with that green time. If you unlock that green time, like gamify this thing, whatever motivates you, and whether it's spending time with your family, going fishing, whatever you want to do. But yeah, have that carrot, but just don't fall victim to where you hit your goals and then all of a sudden you're just slacking off. Well, at that point, you need to up your goals, right? If you find yourself consistently hitting your 10, guess what? You're now assigned to 15 a week, right? And if you're hitting 15, go to 20, 25. So my best when I was tracking this, my best, which correlates also to my volume, was when I was averaging 4.33 green time hours a day. And so, yes, Carl, there is a direct correlation. The more green time you have, the more business you will close, no question. And one other last, and I don't know, before I forget this, one other pro tip, I actually own 4 chest timers. So I have one at home sitting here right in front of me. So I'm recording today at home. I have one at the office. I have one in my car. And then I have one just because. So it's somewhat of a gift or an extra, but I use 3 actively. And the reason being is when I go into meetings in my car, I'll slap that on the green time. As soon as I get back in my car, if I'm not hitting the phones for prospects, it's back to red. So I make sure I track every minute of my day best I can to show what it is. So you can get one and carry it with you, but I just have 3 and leave one in the car and the other 2 stay at my home office and work office.
Some people, man, I just heard a voice in my head saying, boy, Mark, that sounds hard. Let me tell you what hard is. I just got a call from somebody a little bit ago. Hard is having trouble making your mortgage payment. Hard is, I don't know what I'm going to do about my kids' school. Hard is, I really want my wife, my husband, really wants to go on this trip, and I really wanted to make it happen for him, but it's not going to happen. That's hard, right? The sitting down for 2 hours and grabbing my oh, let's just say sharpening my axe and then swinging it, to cut down the tree, so to speak. And there's probably a better analogy there. But the 2 hours of, in our case, let's just be honest, let's keep it real here. In our case, the 2 hours that I'm sitting in a very comfortable chair in an air conditioned, heated room with a roof on it, screens on the window so there's no mosquitoes biting me. I'm getting no sun, so I'm not getting sunburned. In my case, I got a little bowl of grapes over here to moisten my throat if I start to get sore. I've got another little thing here. I got my official green tea, right? Gives me a little bit of energy in my official's Bucky's cup, for those of you who are watching this. And then I've got a list of my different scripts that I use sitting here on. I know the script now, so I just keep a list of them here beside me to remind me to insert in the right one in the right situation. And that's our version of hard work, right? So we got to keep it real here. I don't know, 2 weeks ago, we putting some plants in here on the property and cut the internet cable. And so it's a pretty good little jaunt from the street over here to the house, for where I live. And so they brought new cable in and they had to dig it and bury it. And on that day, frankly, it was cold. So it was in January, where it doesn't get that cold, but cold for Florida. So it's chilly. It's not pouring rain, but it's drizzling. And I see a guy out there with a shovel and a pick, and he's digging a trench, through my yard to bury the cable. And I don't know, sometimes I see things like that sometimes, and I'm just very humbled that we can. And dude, my suspicion is that guy could only dream of making what we can all make when we make our calls. And so I have to reset that picture in my head about what I consider hard and what really is hard.
Couldn't
And
agree more. And I liken this, a lot of things. I always come back to the gym analogy, right? If somebody says I'm going to go run a marathon, and you've been sitting on the couch for the last 2 years,
mm,
you don't just go run the marathon, right? My advice is, step one, join a gym. And I
mm,
wouldn't care if that person drove to the gym every morning, clocked in, went to the lobby, got coffee, and went home. Because at the end of the day, you're starting the building of the habits,
mm,
right? As long as you get that routine started. Now that maybe after a month you start making a friend and you start going to work out. I don't care what kind of workout they do. I don't care if they just walk. I don't care if they pick up a few weights, but I'm
mm.
not at that point of saying, man, you got to get the personal trainer and go hardcore, because everybody's going to have different speeds. You and me,
Yes.
Carl, I know we're the same. I'm going to be like day one, I'm getting the gym, I'm getting the personal trainer, I'm doing all this stuff. That's who I am. But it could also punch somebody in the face and be like, I don't like this, and you come home sore, and then you don't want to go back.
Mm,
So some of this is just ease into it. It depends on your speed. Like everybody's got their own throttle. Everybody's going to determine green time to be their own thing. However you want to measure your own green time. Again, just be honest with yourself, and then just be consistent. And at the end of the day, I don't care where you start. Everybody's going to get to the different finish line, of their choosing, and they're going to get there on their own speed. The hope and dream is that everybody listening to this at least wants. I mean, you're listening to this because you want to be better. There's nobody here that says, "Oh man, I'm good where I am. Thanks, but no thanks. But I'm going to waste time listening to a podcast." No, you're listening to it because you want to be better. So
mm.
I would just say it sounds hard, sounds complicated. Look, green and red, two things. Just figure out what you want those to be and just record it. And even if you never track it, you'll eventually just understand. So again, I just recognize there are different people that have different needs, different drives, different goals. Like everybody's finish line is going to be different, and the path they take is going to be different. That's what's cool about this business. Just don't overcomplicate it. Make it fun. Find a friend. And so what got me on this for the first 30 days I started this, there were four of us. Every single day you had to take a picture and text it to the group text
Mm.
for 30 days. So that's the other motivating part, is when I'm like, oh, I got 32 minutes. And then the big chief of the text was, oh, here's my 5 hours and 13
Yeah.
minutes. Like, son of a gun. I'm like,
It's
there's a
always
reason why
that guy.
there's a reason why that guy 5X my income that year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And again, was a good producer even at the time, but holy smokes. So
Yeah.
again, get with a group text, find one person you want to be like, get them doing it and chase them. Because that's going to be the part where like that's achievable, right? Once once the 4 mile minute barrier was broken for running, all of a sudden 20 other people did it within like a certain number of months. Find somebody who's doing 6 hours and chase them.
Mm.
You're not going to get there tomorrow, but mimic those you want to be like. So I just think, look, I'm telling you right now, it's humbling. The biggest part why people may stop this is it does take a little effort. You got to remember to turn this sucker on and off, but it sits in front of me. And literally right now, Carl, I'm seeing this second tick by tick by tick. And in a good way, I'm like, oh man, you kind of get that anxious feeling, like, oh man,
I get
because
it.
you know that I promise you, this is probably the number one indicator. There's two other ones. We can talk about the other one later, which is just your calls, right? The activities. What do you do? But this is a really telltale sign of who's serious about their business and how much business you're going to do in 90 days. Because I promise you, the higher that number is consistently, day over day, week over week, I promise this is the best way to tell where you're spending your time.
Yeah. It just goes back down to, what the bottom line on green time is? The bottom line on that is you're making offers. You're making offers. And we all know the more offers you make, the more money you'll make. And the only reason why any loan officer is making more than any other loan officer, they simply made more offers and got rid of the clutter stuff that makes me feel like I'm doing something important, but I'm not actually doing something that actually moves the needle. So
Yep.
good stuff, man. Hey man, give me in wrapping this up, give me an action item.
Yeah,
Carl, go
very
do.
simple. Carl, do this. Go to Amazon, Google in digital chess timer. Look for, and there's two or three. I think Leap is another brand, but just buy it. It's $20. I think it's like 18. It goes price vary. Have it show up, write green on a piece of paper and tape it to the left side, write red on the right side, and just use it for 30 days. And it takes habits, right? You're going to forget to turn it on. You'll forget to flip the switch. And you look at the end of the day, oh man, it's been running on green the whole day. And you weren't in green. But the reality is, buy the chess timer, start using it, have fun with it. And if for a bonus, step two, if you want to take another action item, find a friend to do it with. I promise you, the accountability partner is huge. I heard something this morning in an audiobook. You're 7 times more likely to complete something if you do it with a friend,
Mm.
which is wild, but it's true.
It just goes back to that thing like if I do something by myself, I do good work. If I know somebody's watching, I just do a little better,
Yeah.
a little faster, a
It's
little
so,
further.
so true.
Yeah, just a little, because I got somebody watching.
Yep. So true.
Just a little better, a little better. So cool stuff. Mortgage Mark Pfeiffer out of the Dallas Fort Worth area. So, brother, what actually town do you actually live in?
Believe it or not, which is it's a valid question. For those that don't know, when somebody says they're from Dallas, you then ask, "Oh yeah, what town or what city?" And then you're going to be for surrounding piece. So I grew up over in Grapevine, which is a suburb. But the reality is, as an adult, Carl, I'm one of the ones that say I actually live physically in Dallas. Like my zip code is a Dallas zip code, which is weird. So you're
Wow.
not wrong to ask that. So people listening to me like, why is Carl asking that? 90% of the time, you're going to get a different answer than Dallas. Like, oh, I live in Grapevine or Plano or Frisco or wherever. But I actually do live in Dallas proper.
The majority of people that live in Dallas don't live in Dallas. They
Correct.
live in surrounding suburbs by far.
Correct.
Good stuff. Hey, Mark, I appreciate you, my man. Google Mortgage Mark or go on Facebook and look up Mark Pfeiffer out of Dallas. Always a pleasure, brother. Looking forward to talking to you on the next episode.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Hey, if when you're ready to, what do I do on this green time? What does that look like? Maybe knowing what to say. I find the number one thing that holds people back from making their phone calls and prospecting is simply the fear of I don't know what to say. Whereas if you knew what to say, it really wipes a lot of that out. So we'd love to help you with that. Just go to freedomclubdemo.com, freedomclubdemo.com. It's your turn. You deserve it. Let's get started. freedomclubdemo.com. We'll do this absolutely free, just another random act of coolness. And we'll talk to you when you call in. And I'll see you on the next episode of Loan Officer Freedom. Thanks again, everybody. Bye bye.